Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. All council members are present. We have an agenda that was sent out to you folks in your packet. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda, staff? No. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We have our minutes from our last two meetings, August 28th special budget meeting we had, also on September 4th, our regular meeting. Is there any additions or corrections or changes to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. At this time is our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Anybody wish to address the council? No, seeing none. We'll move on then to our reports and presentations as we have no public hearings tonight. Brian, Police Department monthly report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Activity report for August. Some of the numbers we had 8 alarm calls. We had 30 assists for other agencies, 10 child custody issues, 17 citizen contacts, 3 disorderly conducts, 10 dog complaints, 10 driving after suspension, revocation, or cancellations, 6 juvenile problems, 22 matter of informations, 10 medicals, 12 accidents. We had 20 suspicious activity calls, 14 thefts. We had 289 verbal warnings, 7 welfare checks. So we had a total of 659 for the total activity. And if you compare that to July, we're 57 calls down from July and 54 verbal warnings up for difference of 3 less than last July. And pretty much since 2012 it's pretty much the same. Not much changes. August and July are 2 busy months. Otherwise, that's all I have.
All right. Any questions for Brian?
Nope.
Anybody? None? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Planning Commission report. Sarah?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet, you have a copy of the Planning Commission meeting agenda that was held September 10th. And at that meeting, we had 3 public hearings, one for rezoning, one for amendment to the zoning ordinance pertaining to accessory structures, and amendment to the zoning ordinance pertaining to dimensional standards, and those will be action items later on your agenda. And the informational item that I have is that on Friday and Saturday is the citywide cleanup for scrap metal. Friday, 8 a.m. till 7 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. till noon.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Sarah?
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Airport Commission report. Vicki?
Okay, the airport board met in regular session on Wednesday, September 11th. They had discussed the necessary repairs to the T-hanger door seals. That's the seals on the bottom of the doors were damaged from ice from last year. They discussed options for water drainage around the fueling area. The water that comes off the taxiway or the parking pad there tends to gather around that, and so we're looking at some grading for that. They did note that the LED lights have been installed in the windsock, and they are discussing options for a new windsock pole with MnDOT. They have a proposal to repair a leaky window in the FBO building, and they also are looking at, they reviewed the summary of the facility requirements for the master plan update, and that master plan committee will be meeting again in the next month or so. And then we're on track to have a February completion date on that. They discussed more in length obstruction removal requirements for crops, trees, and rows. As the farmers get the crops off the field, the surveyor will go in there and mark those limitations so we have that, so that we don't get encroachments in the future. And they also looked at the capital improvement plan, including the entitlement balance and grant options going forward. So they kind of were looking at some operational things, some future planning, and the grant all at once. So it was a good, productive meeting this time. Any questions?
No. Any questions for Vicki?
I just had one question. Is our hangar, is there any available hangar space out there?
We do have available hangars. We had quite a few vacancies, but over the summer now, we've been seeing an uptick in renters, so that's a good sign. But we still do have availability there.
How many?
I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, thank you. And then, as Vicki noted too, we do meet, the Airport Commission meets every 3 months, right?
Every other month.
Every other month. So it's kind of a nice report. They spend a lot of time when they get together because they don't meet monthly. So they'll be meeting again coming up here in November. So any questions otherwise? None? Thank you, Vicki. I want to move on to the Operations Committee report.
The Operations Committee met on Tuesday, September 10th. That's Council Members Thomas and Johnson. We looked at their 6 concrete repair projects we talked about early in the year. They're under contract to be completed, and we're just waiting for the contractor on those. They discussed the replacement of the 1989 Chevy pickup that was sold previously. That is an action item on your agenda with the recommendation tonight, as well as the replacement of the chipper that we currently own jointly with the public utility. That also is an action on your agenda later. They discussed briefly the future of the snow blower. That's the big snow blower that fits on the front of the payloader. In the wintertime we use that, and that's something that they need to start talking about a little more seriously as we move forward. We do have the replacement of the John Deere 1445. So that's the 3rd action item you have tonight as it relates to the Operations Committee. Other things they discussed was the options for a secure fenced impound area for vehicles, the storm pond cleaning for the pond by the treatment plant and the industrial park, looking at some ditching and gravel restoration on Hickman Drive from the end of the tar to Ferry Lake Road, and also looking at how we can do some gravel and drainage on Center Street from Beltline to 12th Street South. And we don't have a recommendation on that Center Street because it's kind of an in-town one, but it looks like we'll be able to do some work on the Beltline Road. That's more of a rural standard out there because there's probably quite a distant time before we'll be putting the infrastructure in. So as I have the 3 action items later on the agenda. Otherwise, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? None? Thank you, Vicki. We'll move on then to the feasibility report for Pendergast and Oak Street. Keith?
Kick this off. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have actually 2 reports in front of you. One is Pendergast, which is an update. You recall you asked for an update to those costs. That was done a year plus ago now, I do believe. So we do have some just updates of costs for that one. And then the Oak Street reconstruction project, we'll present that in summary fashion, that report to you. And later on the action items, you'll be determining whether you wish to go forward with public hearings for either one of these projects we move forward. And try to stay out of the way of the camera as best as I can, and I'll also be able to operate this thing. So I think I'll start from here. Our agenda was to say we'll first start off with the Pendergast Street reconstruction. This is an update to that report. I think Mayor and Councilmember Thomas weren't here when we did the original one, so I'll go through it in a fairly summary fashion, but please ask any questions, and then we'll go through the Oak Street project after that. So Pendergast, we've done an updated cost to upgrade the existing gravel roadway and also extend some utilities on that street. This is the project. North is to your left on the plan there. Essentially is making a A little bit smaller than our typical roadway. This is a 32-foot wide roadway, extending it from the existing blacktop that's on the north side, extending it down around the corner all the way down to the end of the plat line there. There are existing homes on both sides. On the what would be the west side, as some homes have been there for a while now. The east side is a plat that's been platted for a few years now, and there is one home that's currently exists in that area. That is a developer's agreement on that particular side of the road. And I'll get into that as it relates to assessments later. Essentially, there's some extension of utilities way on the south end, as well as including connections for services for sewer and water on either side. And you'll note sort of in the middle of there'll be some storm sewer that collects the water at the low spot that's kind of in the middle of the road, and we'll discharge that into a small ponding area to the east side, which then discharges down into Beltline's ditch. So those are the improvements in real summary fashion. There's two assessment scenarios that were being looked at with this. This first one is per our current formal assessment policies. You can see the estimated costs there for all the sanitary, the water, storm, the services, the streets. The total is about $181,000, if I could get my eyes focused on that, almost $182,000. The assessed cost with this is $163,000. That is where we're assessing the street costs, we're assessing the storm sewer costs with this particular scenario. You'll note the PUC cost, which is the extension of the sanitary and the water main, a little over $18,000 for that one. I'll go through these. You have these in your report. You can look through them real quick. You'll note these are the assessment roll, preliminary assessment roll. Note the rates up at the top, about $99 a foot for front foot for the street, about $17 for the curb and gutter, sanitary service $1,600, and water service about $1,700 for those. There is one that's inch and I don't remember if there's one an inch and a half even in here, so I think they're just the $1,700. Storm sewer is about 5 cents per square foot with that. And as you can just kind of scroll through, you'll see about $1,000, $1,100 there goes up to there's $17,000, $18,000 through there, $21,000. As you get down to the Conan's property, you'll see there's a $15,000, $12,000. These are those platted lots that currently don't have homes on most of those at this point in time. They're around that roughly around that $12,000. This one's a flag lot. That's what's a little smaller for the front footage for these particular ones. So that's that scenario. We also asked to look at the different scenario, which is something we've done more recently, which is the 50-50 split on the streets and the curb and gutter. You notice the cost is obviously the same, but the assessed costs go down to $124,000. City's cost then picks up that. That's a little over $39,000 for city costs with this scenario. You can kind of get a sense here what it does. You can see the street costs get cut in half to $49 a linear foot and $870 a linear foot for curb and gutter. The rest stays the same. You can see how that impacts if you kind of go back and forth the different assessments. But roughly that $10,000. Now when you get down to the Conan parcels again, now those ones you'll note those rates are higher because with the developer's agreement they are required to pay that 100%. So those are still as it was in that first scenario due to the developer's agreement with that. So those haven't changed from scenario 1 to scenario 2. So those are the costs that we have for the Pendergast that have been updated. The updated costs, basically, they went up about just a little over 2% from the last time you've seen those, and that's just the inflation through that period of time. Maybe I can pause and see if there's any quick questions for this before I move into the next one.
The extension of the water main would be just extending the existing size of main that's
Correct.
Currently on the north end?
That's correct.
And the location of the projected road that you're planning would be in the same location, just extending on what's there as the gravel? There's been questions about if that's actually centered on the...
Yeah, it's not quite centered. We've made it so we can utilize the gravel that's there to the best we can. It's offset just a little bit to the west side, actually, I believe is where the road is at with that. Otherwise, it would cost more to basically redo everything through there. We also have utilities that aren't centered in the right-of-way there, so it's kind of an attempt to keep those where we generally want them in the road or as close as we can, as well as utilize that gravel as best we can.
So is the city's right-of-way going to be an issue by the road being not centered? I mean, we still have plenty of right-of-way along
We
there,
still have
no
enough
issues?
that It'll be fine. We have enough boulevard on the short side that it'll still be fine. We're looking at some infiltration. You recall we need to do some infiltration. That little pond I talked about in the storm is a small infiltration basin. There's actually one on either side of the road. So we drain off the curb into there, and then it gets picked up and goes underneath. So that's kind of how that works. We have both infiltration and catch basins on that little spot.
Anybody else have any questions? Again, there is no curb in this road, we're just going to extend the existing.
No, it is curb. It is curb and gutter. Urban section, so it's curb and gutter. The only thing different from sort of our normal residential street is it's a little bit narrower, at 32 feet. So it is curb and gutter and blacktop and the whole works.
It's curb and gutter on both sides, right?
On both sides, correct.
After the extension, because right now on the east side of that existing tar, there's no curb.
On the existing, right. This goes up and doesn't go all the way up with new curb on that side. It is new curb all the way on this new section that is proposed in here, but we don't continue that all the way around up. One reason is it's, first of all the water drains across through there. There's not much room there as it relates to the ditch on that particular side. So at this point in time, the plan is to leave that kind of as is on that section that's on that very north end.
So we're going to have a street that has no curb to a street that's going to have curb as we
have curb on the west side.
Right, I'm
just
talking
not
on the east side.
Not the east side, and that first, half a block roughly in there.
Okay.
Because of that ditch so
Yep.
narrow.
It could be added, but we're trying to keep costs as low as we could. Look at, is it really needed through their area? What's the purpose? There is no buildings on that particular side of the road, no driveways, those kinds of things. So I was determined that that would be a way of saving costs. We don't necessarily need to put a curb and gutter on that side. It just drains off down into the ditch, and we get some infiltration that way. So that's, there's some benefits to that actually.
Okay. In your cost breakdown then, as you provided here on page 6.6, the street cost, then that does include the curb and stuff as it's not listed?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Remember in the assessments, there's a street cost and a curb and gutter
Yep.
cost.
Now, that half a block that doesn't have curb right now, is that going to be affected by when I think next year the county's doing that reconstruct on Beltline?
I'm not familiar with whether that directly impacts that or not.
Because if they reconstruct, I was just wondering if that's going to affect our project if we go ahead with this.
Yeah, I don't know if Vicki's seen that or not, or...
The reconstruct part is on the other end. This end of the belt line is just going to be no.
Just no.
Oh,
So we have
okay.
any...
So the reconstruct's more closer to the stoplights? 12th
12th
Street.
Street, yep.
Okay.
All right. Any questions, anybody? None? All right, thanks, Keith.
Okay, then we'll move on to the Oak Street reconstruction project. This is reconstruction just north of here, pretty severely deteriorated roadway. It's basically it's 2 blocks, but it's about a block and a half really of length from up to the Park Road down to Sinclair Lewis Avenue. Picture of it, it's a mix of, you'll see some commercial in the distance there, as well as some residential that we have, so it's a mixed roadway, which is not terribly common. We have severe deterioration, extensive patching. Don't have actually a good picture of the intersection. That second in Oak is severely deteriorated, falling apart through there, though it doesn't look like substantial subgrade issues. It's not lumpy in there like the subgrade's failing. It's just the bituminous is all falling apart through there. The curb and gutter, and you can kind of see some of this in the picture, is getting pretty bad in certain areas. There's right by actually the curb in front of the city's parking lot is actually probably some of the best out there, and the rest of it is in fairly poor shape. The proposed improvements in this picture then north is to your right. The proposed improvements would be to redo all of the sewer and water through there from the south end. That is currently a new stub that comes off of St. Clair Lewis that was done back in 2002, 2003. We'd be connecting to that. We'd run a new 6-inch line all the way up to 2nd Street, and then it actually turns and goes to the west down 2nd Street. Now, the extent of the construction would just be right-of-way to right-of-way, so we'd just stub out and we'd connect back into it. It's a 4-inch cast iron pipe that's the current water main through there. We also are looking at extending just a stub water main that would go to the east on 2nd Street, so that sometime in the future, when 2nd Street to the east, that block is done, that could be connected into Main Street to provide a loop through there. So that's been planned for the future there. Sanitary sewer is all clay tile pipe through there, all original. That will be all replaced with 8-inch PVC. There are 3 manholes as well. They're just brick manholes, and all of that will be replaced with new precast structures. There's a small drop actually from that which is to the south flowing into that intersection at Sauk and 2nd, about a 3-foot drop that drops into that manhole there. Because that which goes down 2nd Street, we replace once again from right-of-way to right-of-way on 2nd Street. That is a 12-inch line, so that's just a little bigger line. It's got a fair amount of flow in it, so we do have bypass pumping costs in there when that's replaced to pump it around that construction to make sure that we continue that service. A fair amount of the city to the east of that, or excuse me, to the west of that comes through that pipe, so we need to keep that active. New services for all throughout the area. There's one I'll actually just kind of point to, walk up here. There is a service for this home. This is Michael Woods, I believe it is here. And that water main actually comes all the way back, that water service all the way back to the intersection. And we'll still have to do that, but because we don't have anything to tie it into a main up here. But we will be extending that, making a new service all the way up, and new sanitary service for that lot through here. There's also a lot that's out here that has a water service that comes all the way back. We won't be replacing it all, but with this project, we would be replacing that which is within the roadway portion that would be reconstructed. And then later on, this would be replaced. Later in the future, we'll have that water main, and we'll come through and we'll have a regular service that would go directly into the home, would be the plan for some time down the line. And these have been reviewed with the PUC as well, just for your information. As relates to the streets, we do have that mix of commercial and residential through here. The residential properties, if I should just stay over here, the residential properties that are right here are actually, you can note there's a jump in the curb on that particular side. It gets narrower in this section here. We're actually proposing to keep that generally the way it is at this point in time, and there's a couple reasons for that. This, I'll get into that in a second. This, in the commercial area, is a 44-foot face-to-face curb, which is kind of typically what we've done. It matches the Oak Street to the south through there. That curb line stays the same along the west side through here, but here we bump it in and it actually moves in 2 feet on this side. Couple reasons for that. One is because that the existing curb is so high. There is a boulevard here. There is some nice trees through here that if we move it in, we'll end up basically losing everything in that boulevard through there. Just because of the elevation difference in order to get it to grade in through here, we would lose everything through here, and I think it'd be really difficult and for these particular homeowners. So I've contemplated moving that out 2 feet in that particular area. So that would be actually a 42-foot wide street then through here. As you go to the north, this block I'm looking at saving the existing curb through here. So from here is only bituminous and all the utilities that are underneath it that would be redone. And we have to come all the way up here for the utilities, so it really made sense just to tear out that asphalt and go all the way up to Park Road here as it relates to this, because there's only another about 50, 60 feet in order to make it a full road that's redone through here. So, but this curb would be salvaged through there. It's still in good shape through here, so we can utilize this. The radiuses would be changed, but everything else through there, the curb would be utilized again. It's still got a fair amount of good life left in it. This is a 40-foot wide, 20 feet on either side, face to face. For this would be the plan, and that's what it is right now. So I think that's about it for the improvements. I'll go into those project costs, estimated project costs. About $56,000 for the sanitary, a little over $42,000 for the water main, storm sewer $32,000. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Storm sewer, we don't really have enough capacity in an intersection. There's stuff right at Second and Oak. What I'd be looking at doing is replacing that piping through there. Also, up into the parking lot, there just drains underneath the curb, or excuse me, underneath the sidewalk right now. So we're proposing to extend the storm sewer up and a catch basin into that corner of the parking lot, be the northeast corner of the parking lot, pick up that water so it's not draining overland. When you go underneath, it's only this deep going underneath the sidewalk in the springtime. You get that freeze thaw, nothing really drains in through there, so this would take care of that situation. Also, that which goes down Second to the west really doesn't have enough capacity, so I put a little larger pipe, and then we'd neck it down at that right-of-way line, and in the future, when Second is done to the west, we would extend that larger line and connect it and do that sometime in the future. So I've contemplated those things. So anyway, $32,000 for that. Services are just under $30,000. Streets, $174,000 for that. And you can see the city cost of this with the storm sewer, and this is, once again, this is a 50% for that. It's also looked at 50% for the streets, so $103,000 for the city costs. PUC costs are for the sanitary and the water main. That's just short of $198,000. And then the accessible cost would be for half of the storm sewer, all of the services on an individual basis, and half of the streets for about $133,000 in accessible costs. These are the rates that we have for those. Streets are about $75.74 front foot for those. Sanitary services, sanitary is $1,242. Water is $1,746 for that. The cost for the storm, and that is about 21 cents per square foot for that. And then once again, you see the PUC cost here. So that's the assessment rates. To take a look at what those assessments would be, preliminarily for those individuals are listed through here. So it's around that 8,000 up to some of the larger lots, larger frontages are about $14,000 for those ones. So that's kind of the range. I think the high one there is $16,000, which is the national retail properties through there. And that's about a little over 16. Otherwise, around $8,000 kind of through those. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions at this point. So once again, you'll have an agenda item just coming up, which will indicate whether you wish to move forward with a public hearing for one or both of these projects.
A few questions for you, Keith. Yep. In regards to the current issue with the PUC's having with Second Street with some water issues there with the infrastructure. I believe we've had some folks out, and I believe I've talked with Marty, and they kind of pinpointed where they think the problem is in that intersection there. If we don't move through with this project, they're still going to need to go through and repair what the issue is there, correct? Correct. And so the existing infrastructure that's there, they're really going to be able to just go down, fix their leak, basically, in a nutshell, and patch it back up.
Yeah. It is all the water is all cast iron through there. The services are all galvanized.
Correct.
Through there.
You said the infrastructure is original. How much life expectancy out of the existing infrastructure? I mean, did you guys actually go down into the manholes and take a look, or put a camera down in and look at the current infrastructure to see?
We're going to be televising those manholes, or excuse me, the pipes. That's going to be done here in the next couple of weeks. The PUC will be looking at those. We have looked down the manholes, and they're not in great shape. As you can imagine, those brick ones, they get pretty bad. So they're not in real good shape at this point. They are in need of some repairs for sure. The pipe's been there long enough that it's, there's no discernible life left to it from what we would typically say. It's been there for enough years that it's used its useful life up.
The other question, my last question is the grade of the new infrastructure. Will it be very similar to the existing grade as it's there today as far as storm sewer and everything?
Yeah, certainly the sanitary would be, the water would be, the storm would probably change just minor because we really have to connect into things there, so we don't have a lot of room to do that. But there may be some minor changes with the storm sewer, but nothing's appreciative.
Okay.
And the road section, because of the existing boulevards, we really can't change the road that much, so we'll pretty well be matching closely to what's there now for the road grades as well.
So the curb heights, they'd change though?
Curb heights would change because we would have standard B618 curb. Currently, the curb out there is anywhere from 4 inches from the back height to upwards of 10 plus inches in height. So that would all be consistent 6 inches. So obviously we need to match kind of the top of what's there now to as close as we can. It's kind of like what we did over here. We basically make grades that go down the curb line to try and match everything back in. What happens is we do get the road kind of moving a little bit like this on each side, but as long as it's within a reasonable tolerance, you don't really feel it. It doesn't ride poorly if you do it that way.
Anybody else have any questions? In looking at the per foot pricing, would you say that this pricing is a fair price based on what the industry is, or would you say that this price is higher? I guess when I look at this, my first overall look at it is, wow, it's expensive, $334,000 for really a block and a half. You could say 2 blocks, but a block and a half of work. Higher than what I was anticipating, but you've done your due diligence on it. So how are you looking at the per unit price to give us a comparable to what we did on 4th Street and some of the other projects?
Yeah, it's actually for this project is a pretty good price. I've looked at it usually from 2 different ways. I like to do it from a unit cost basis, which is what you see in the report there. And I also like to look at from kind of a rule of thumb to see, are we kind of in the ballpark? Typically, when we look at streets like this, we look at, for full reconstruct, look at $350 per lineal foot. And you do the math on that, and it's pretty close to this exact number. So I always kind of look at it from a couple different ways to see, are we in the ballpark? Does this make sense? Did I miss something on it? But this is pretty good rates for this. It's a smaller job, so I do have the unit costs a little bit higher than you would for something such as the size of 4th Street. But that's obviously the costs will be what the costs are when if it goes forward and it gets bid. It depends on the bidding climate at the time, but these are rates that we're seeing out there at this point in time.
I see, based on our assessment policy, we're looking at 13 properties that are going to pay roughly $133,000. And when I see somebody being assessed $16,000, I know it bites. It definitely is it's a big cost. But in the same token, we got infrastructure to maintain. So, that's one concern I have.
All new street, all new utilities, and typically, if you look at it, it's really almost like a new development because you're getting new street, new utilities, new services. Typically on new development, you're paying $20,000, $25,000 on a per lot basis for these things. Now in this case, the utilities are being paid for by the PUC, therefore that buys down that number. But we're seeing it $25,000 plus for new development. So if you kind of think about it in those terms, it is there's no question it's expensive. But it is. Things unfortunately are expensive to do these days, and it kind of is what it is. So.
And this is figured at a 50/50, right?
This is at 50/50. That's right. Correct for those assessments.
So basically, if we would go by our assessment policy, 50/50 is better than what the 80/20 is set at.
Any other questions?
The only concern I have is the stormwater part of it, because everybody's paying a stormwater utility assessment. And it certainly was my understanding that that was supposed to pay for this kind of stuff. I see 4th Street, those property owners weren't being assessed. We have a stormwater utility to pay for it. And it seems to me that these people are paying a stormwater utility. Why are they being assessed?
Maybe I can just clear a little bit. As it relates to storm sewer, trunk storm sewer costs are what the city is picking up. That's what we did on 4th Street. This isn't trunk storm sewer. This is lateral size storm sewer that we're doing here. So that's why the city's not picking up much more of it as it relates to what we did on 4th Street here. Also, our stormwater utility is mostly for maintenance and some replacements. Now, this is some replacement, but it's, that is an area that we could discuss. It's whether there's some things that we want to change a little bit and look at as it relates to assessment policy, whether there could be some adjustments. But, this is how it's broke out for you currently. That doesn't necessarily mean you can decide if you want to do something a little bit different than what's currently proposed. But that's, it's probably a good discussion topic on that storm sewer.
It's not your discussion, it's ours, so.
Yeah, but I want to just get some of that background, that trunk and lateral area.
Right. I think, Dave's point's very well taken, because the community definitely believes that by the storm water utility fee, that was going to help cover storm work. So I think there is part of that.
Didn't we reduce the fee and took out some of that money that might have been used for that kind of thing?
We reduced the commercial rate to some.
Which took out our...
Took out some dollars. Right. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Any other questions? None? Thank you, Keith. All right, we will move into our action items then. Action item 7A is approved resolution 2013-64 declaring cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessments on the 4th Street Stormwater Project, and resolution 2013-65 calling a hearing on proposed assessments for 4th Street Stormwater Project. Vicki?
You get a handout tonight from the city engineer, 4th Street project estimate totals. Keith has anything additional to provide to that. We also have provided to you a copy of the special, or the assessments, or the final assessment roll as proposed based on this final cost of the project. And what we're really asking to do tonight is simply to declare those costs to be assessed and to call the public hearing for October 16th at 6:30 p.m. If you see something that jumps out at you on that 4th Street project final cost estimate, if you want to provide, or to have questions for Keith about that.
I don't have any.
Sorry about that, he turned off the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe if there's one thing I just want to point out on the construction cost, the overall estimate is about $15,000 under the bid amount. So just point that out to it.
Okay. I'm seeing a total project cost of about $3.236 million.
Correct.
On the 4th Street, so we're looking at about 3.215 less. So we have a very large project. 4th Street was a 2-year project of over $3 million, $3.2 million. The assessment roll, as you laid out here, is presented to us. I mean, we just got it, so it's really hard to have any questions in regards to this, but this is just calling for the public hearing in regards to the projected numbers. So if there's specific things that we will need to have corrected or clarified, it will be coming in that. We can do that
And what
at the
we'll do
public
now
hearing.
is we'll mail this notice out to the property owners with the dollar amount of what their assessment will be. is proposed to be, and then you'll have the public hearing, and of course, the costs have been incurred, so at that public hearing, if there's a thought that you want to assess more or assess less or find other funds or something, but this is put forth per the assessment policy.
Right.
So that is what they're being notified. So what we're really asking to do tonight is two resolutions. 2013-64 declares the cost to be assessed, and 2013-65 calls the public hearing. And if you notice on here, the costs to be assessed are relatively low on this project at $250,997.21.
Yes, and these preliminary numbers, are they in line with what the original preliminary numbers were that were presented to the residents that lived on these, this is affecting?
The total number is, most of them, for the most part, are lower, but
Okay.
it just depends if it was, if you had the water and the sewer services actually came in lower than they were originally told.
Okay.
But if you had just street and no water or sewer service to change, then your assessment might have gone up a little bit. So, but as an overall, the average is less.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, any questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2013-64, declaring cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of the proposed assessment of the 4th Street Stormwater Project, and Resolution 2013-65, calling the hearing on proposed assessments for 4th Street Stormwater Project as presented?
So moved.
We had a motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Warren, and second by Mike. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Moving on then to action item B, approve resolution 2013-66, receiving report and calling hearing on 2014 improvements for Pendergast Street.
And you had that presentation earlier from the city engineer. So again, this is what we're talking, or what we're asking tonight is simply to call the hearing on the improvement to be held on the second meeting in October. And at that time, then all the people would be notified of what their estimated assessment may be, and then they'd have the opportunity to come in and address the council, and you could get a good feel for whether they're in favor of the project or not. And so again, this resolution 2013-66 receives that report that you received earlier and calls the hearing on the improvement for Pendergast Street.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution 2013-66, receiving the report and calling the hearing on 2014 street improvements for Pendergast Street?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, is there a second?
Second.
We got a motion by Keith and second by Dave. Any questions? Discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to 7C, approve resolution 2013-67, receiving report and calling hearing on 2014 street improvements for Oak Street.
And as you just said, this simply calls the hearing. The property owners will all be notified and invited to come in and to hear of the presentation from the city engineer, and then have an opportunity to speak on whether they wish you to go forward or not. And then after that, then you would make the determination whether we move forward with design, et cetera. And following that public hearing, and I don't think I said that for the previous one, but you actually have 6 months from the time you have that hearing to decide whether or not to move forward with the improvement. So, but right now, we're just calling the hearing for improvement on Oak Street.
Vicki, just have a few questions in regards before I call the action. If we don't move forward with the Oak Street, other than the issue that's right now in front of us on 2nd and Oak, the street's working. I mean, the stormwater's being diverted the way it's supposed to be, and things are working as they are today, correct?
We've had quite a few where people had to go into the street to repair utilities, and the issue that we have with the storm is actually chunks of asphalt washed down the street during a storm. But, you know, the street is functioning as a street. It's just deteriorated to, there's not a lot there anymore.
And a mill and overlay type thing would take care of the street, just would not address the infrastructure,
It
correct?
wouldn't address the infrastructure, right? And that's a decision sometimes when you make a mill and overlay, you know, then that's going to add life to the street. Is the infrastructure going to survive that length of time? And then we also have the issue with the high curbs and some of that. And so that's why we looked at, maybe we just fix it. And so that's why we're here tonight. If this doesn't go forward, then we'll look and see what other options we have.
Okay. All right. I will ask the council if you have anybody have a wish to make a motion. Have
I'll
any
make that
questions?
motion to approve it.
We have a motion to approve Resolution 2013-67, receiving the feasibility report and calling a hearing on improvement for Oak Street South. We have a motion by Warren. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any discussion? I have just a couple comments that I'd like to make. One is I am certainly in favor of maintaining the infrastructure, and you know, there's no doubt that that street is in need, the infrastructure. However, I'm looking at what we've done over the last several years of a major upgrade to Ash Street. We're spending $3.3 million or $3.2 million on 4th Street, and I'm just questioning the timing. I don't know that it needs to be done this year, but if we could set aside some funds to help offset another $300,000 infrastructure repair, whether it's for a year or 3 years, I just feel that we're taking on a lot of construction, we're taking on a lot of infrastructure replacement that for many years has been pushed back. And I understand that's why we're having to address it now, but in the same token, taking more maybe than we can handle at 1 year or within a year or two makes me a little bit uneasy from a financial perspective. So that's just my take is I think it needs to be done at some point in time. I just think the cost is greater right now than what I was anticipating and what we want to pay. But I'll open it up to the council before I call for the motion.
Just one comment. My concern is the fear fact that when they do dig into that intersection, that they're not going to find more. And they're going to end up going halfway up the street anyway because the pipe's so rotten that it just keeps falling apart and breaking down. And it's like anytime you do a remodel on something, you find things you never seen until you get into it. You know, yeah, we can probably put it off a year, but how many more patch jobs in our downtown area are we going to have people looking at? Because that's one of the roads that some people take to get down to the park.
Yeah. I had a discussion with Marty in regards to that, Warren. It's a very good point, and I think they're pretty confident they've pinpointed where the issue is in that. I know they had some people from out of town that did help them isolate the problem, and you're right, they could get down in there and either see a few more issues and have to address them, but I think they're pretty confident they can find where the problem is and where the leak is down there. So, but yes, very well taken. There's always that risk, and I would guess that if we decided we got into that and it got to be greater, we could always look at the option at that time too, if we wanted to really, if it got to be greater than what we feel just a repair needs to be, that we had to do the project. But just some thoughts. Good, very good points. Any other comments?
Well, I'm confused too, because I didn't think it was going to be anywhere near that amount of money for a block and a half. And so if the PUC has issues down the road, they'll have to fix the intersection. If another leak develops, they'll have to fix that. If they found major problems and ended up digging up half that block, well, that's the way it is, I guess. I mean, that's the utility issue, and they will do what they have to. So, I mean, at that point, it's not like we're going to suddenly call hearings, not that we wouldn't be able to wait anyway, so.
Okay, any other comments?
I guess the only other comment I have on that is it's a hearing. We're not swearing to go ahead with it either, so.
That's true. Yep. Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, I will call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. 4 in favor, 1 against. All right, very good, thank you. Move on to action item D, approve safety training contract. Vicki?
Okay, the Sauk Center Public Utilities requested that the city continue to participate with them for their safety training program. They contract with MMUA, which is the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association, to provide safety training services. We have shared the cost with them in the past. The contract will increase from $9,300 to $9,600. The cost is split between the two entities. So our cost existing is $4,650 per year. The proposed rate will be $4,800, and that starts October 1st and goes to September 30th. So we've been sharing the safety training contract with them, I think it's 8 years now, about that. So the request before you tonight is to approve the continued participation with Sauk Center Public Utilities in the MMUA safety training program.
Any questions? I think the program's going well. I mean, I talked to folks and they believe MMUA does a great job with it. I mean, I know we're
But
talking.
there's getting to be more and more requirements, annual
Right.
training requirements that we have to provide to all the employees, and this gives one person to come in and just take care of that, and to also keep track of the training that we've all had, so that they, for OSHA, et cetera.
MMUA keeps track of that for us? Is that part of our contract, or do we still have to?
No, they keep track of that. We have it on site,
Okay.
but there's a file for all of us, that they make sure that that stays updated.
They maintain it.
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then we'll call for motion. Is there a motion to approve the continuing participation with Sauk Center Public Utilities and the MMUA Safety Training Program?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Action item E, approve ordinance 740, modifying definition of setbacks and clarifying accessory structure requirements. Vicki?
We've had some discussion at City Council and Planning Commission lately about setbacks and accessory structures. And July 17th, actually, the City Council was presented with a proposed amendment to the definition of setbacks, which gave some exceptions that would be allowed. The City Council remanded it back to the Planning Commission to look again at the definition as it relates to accessibility issues and have a discussion on whether 30 feet setback is the right number for a right-of-way. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposal at a subsequent public hearing on September 10th, has proposed an amended ordinance for adoption. The new proposal exempts 3 feet of roof overhang, accessibility ramps, unroofed stoops up to 30 square feet, and steps from the stoop to the ground to be exempt from that setback requirement. So if your house is at 30 feet, you can still have steps to get to the ground, and that can protrude into the setback. If you have an accessibility ramp, that type of thing is allowed. Previous language actually had some more liberal exception language that was kind of subject to interpretation, and so we thought this was more specific for us. The Planning Commission is not recommending a change to the existing 30-foot setback requirement. That has been in effect in Sauk Center since 1954. So I do have for you the existing and the proposed definition of setbacks. You can see what we crossed off and what we're proposing to add. Then at the same meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed size limitations for accessory buildings. They have no recommendation for change to allowed sizes. However, they have proposed clarification language. This proposal clarifies that the 1,200 square foot individual limits of accessory buildings or garages applies to both attached and detached structures. So they do have one proposal to add attached garage into that definition of accessory buildings. And I have both of those pointed out with what's underlined and in yellow in your packet is the new language for both of those. So what we are looking at tonight is to approve Ordinance 740, amending Section 156.003 of the City Code, changing the definition of setbacks, and 156.022C, clarifying the maximum allowed size of attached garages and accessory buildings. And this has to do with the individual size of a specific building. We still have the 2% up to 3,600 square feet maximum, but this just is the specific building size.
Okay. Any questions of staff? The Planning Commission, I know, spent some time working on this and trying to get some language clarified for the council as we go through it. Adding the attached garage, I think, clarifies certainly the accessory structures as well. I found it interesting that the 30-foot setback, you said, has been in place since 1954?
Yes, I actually have the zoning ordinance from 1954.
Wow. Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, what's the wishes of the council?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 740.
We have a motion by Warren to approve ordinance 740, amending section 156.003 of the city code, changing the definition of setbacks, and 156.022, clarifying the maximum allowed size of attached garages and accessory buildings. Motion by Warren, do we have a second?
No, second that.
Motion by Warren and seconded by Keith. Call for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Good, thank you. Moving on to F, approve ordinance 741, amending zoning map Morts.
We have one additional action item requested by the Planning Commission. Norbert and Patricia Mortz are the current owners of property. They're located at the northwest intersection of 10th Street South and Beltline Road. So it's on the west side of Beltline Road. The property consists of a total of 6.3 acres, with 3 acres being county right-of-way, leaving a usable lot area of 3.3. The property is currently zoned IC Commercial Industrial. The owners are requesting that the city change the zoning of the parcel to R1 single and two-family residential, which would allow for the future construction of a residential home on the property. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposal on September 10th, at which time everyone was given the opportunity to ask questions and be heard. The Planning Commission does recommend that the request be granted, and they had several findings. They said the land area, setbacks, floodplain, and wetland requirements will be met. No evidence has been submitted that would indicate a depreciation of property values in the surrounding area. Development as a residential use will be in harmony with the existing neighboring uses in the immediate vicinity, which includes both homes and businesses on large lots. The neighboring property is currently zoned R1, which eliminates spot zoning concerns. The proposal will not create excessive requirements for public utilities, and development of the property is likely to occur as a result of the proposed change in land use zoning. So the action requested tonight is to approve ordinance 741, amending the land use zoning map. And I also included for you the parcel data from the county, and then also the current zoning and the proposed zoning out of our city zoning map.
Okay, Vicki, was there anybody at the Planning Commission that had any comments?
There was a comment in favor. There was none opposed.
None opposed, okay. Thank you. Any questions of staff?
What's currently located in that square, there's a smaller square area just below this triangle, just south of that triangle,
What is
southwest
currently
corner.
located there? There is an accessory garage, or I guess it's a primary because that's the only thing on that property, but there's a large garage there.
Okay, that's currently zoned industrial, it looks like.
It is industrial.
And whereas our little triangle will not be an island, it looks to me like that little square will be now.
That will become an island.
So I disagree with the comment about no spot zoning, because it looks to me like we just made a spot.
But this parcel won't be, I guess is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Hearing none, it's the wishes of the council.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 741, amending the land use zoning map.
We have a motion by Warren. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Warren, seconded by Mike. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Moving on, approve resolution 2013-69, approving purchase of chipper.
For the past years, several years, in fact, I think maybe about 7 or 8 years, The city and the PUC have discussed a joint purchase of a brush chipper to replace the existing 1990 model that we have. Both entities have budgeted for the replacement in 2013. The Operation Committee met and reviewed the options for the purchase through the State of Minnesota bid process. The specifications that the street department and the public utility had come up with was they wanted a drum-style, engine-mounted, single axle with reverse auto speed in the 135 to 150 horsepower range. So we did go out to the state bid. There were 5 brush chippers that met those criteria. You have them listed there: a Brush Bandit, 2 Mobark Beavers, a Vermeer, and a Woodsman. There were some additions to the base cost that are listed there for the reverse auto feed, adjustable swivel discharge, hydraulic lift, et cetera, for a total of $4,900. Given the above estimates, Tri-State Bobcat was asked to demonstrate the Brush Bandit on site, which was done, and they did provide a final proposal to the city, which you see the base price with that addition, freight and shipping, and sales tax for a total of $46,673. Now, due to the sales tax exemption that's going to go into effect on January 1st, we also got a quote for purchasing a 2014 model after the first of the year, which upped the price $8,000 because of the new Tier 4 engine requirements for emissions. So then we talked to them about, can we buy it in 2013 and take delivery and pay for it in 2014 with the dealer so that we would eliminate the sales tax. So that's the route that we're recommending to go now, is to buy the 2013, the lower cost machine, and then take delivery and make payment after the first of the year, and will be exempt with the sales tax. And we did check with the League of Minnesota Cities, and this is something that many cities are doing. And so they're taking advantage of the 2013 models, but taking advantage of the new sales tax exemption. So that takes it back down to $43,000 and some change, $21,800 for the city, $21,800 for the public utility. We had $25,000 budgeted for that, so that's about $3,200 under what we had expected to pay. And the public utility also has the funds. So if you followed that whole scenario, we were trying to work it so that we can get the best bang for our buck. And we think that the estimate that we enclosed in your packet is the right one. And so we're asking to approve Resolution 2013-69, authorizing the purchase of the 2013 Brush Bandit from Tri-State Bobcat. And then the second part of it would be to authorize the sale of the current brusher chipper through the bid process with a minimum bid to be determined in conjunction with the PUC. So that second part of it, we'll have to have that conversation with the public utility as far as the sale of the existing one.
Okay. Vicki, I got just one quick question. In regards to the base prices, I understand that the Brush Bandit come in much less, but the second Mobark Beaver one, which was $45,151, does that include all the additions and things that you had to add on the Brush Bandit? Or?
No, it does not.
So
These are apples to apples comparisons.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I just have one, and I should have asked it at the meeting too, but is there any advantage to going with the new engine configuration as opposed to the 2013 one?
The changes for the new engine are not horsepower related, they are emissions. They are emissions. And so, you know, to be environmental, you know, is it worth the extra $8,000 to do the new emissions? But it doesn't really change, it doesn't change the function of the machine.
Okay. Yeah, so it's emissions, it's not the little we run it. I don't think we're going to be a real burden on the environment, but there isn't like a great horsepower advantage. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions? I know this chipper thing has come up for many years over the last 5. I think we have been pushing this off, so.
Operations Committee decided to take charge and do something.
I see that. That's good. So I think we've definitely made use of it. Any idea what that used one might go for?
We looked in tractor.com and we found them anywhere from like 5 to 9 or 10,000. I don't say for sure because I don't know what condition those were in. I know the public utility was saying, well, for 4,000 we'll keep it type comments, but we haven't really had that discussion yet. So.
Very good.
I know at the last PUC meeting, they talked about putting it out for bid, but with a 6,000 reserve.
Okay.
Okay.
And those dollars that the existing one that will get on a bid will be split between the PUC and the city then, correct?
The machine is owned half and half,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2013-69, authorizing purchase of the 2013 Brush Bandit from Tri-State Bobcat and authorize the sale of the current brusher chipper through the bid process with a minimum bid to be determined in conjunction with the Sauk Center Public Utilities?
So moved.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We're getting the chipper. Great. Moving on, approve Resolution 2013-70, approving the purchase of a pickup truck. Vicki.
This is the Public Works vehicle pickup purchase that we've talked to over the last several months to replace the 1989 Chevy pickup that was the runner truck. Some people refer to it as Butch's truck. It's the one that he drove to kind of get an idea of which truck we're looking to replace. We did have proceeds from sales from earlier trucks in the year, left about $8,300 funds from that sale, plus we had the $15,000 in the current year budget. So we had a balance of $23,342 to be applied toward this pickup purchase. The Operation Committee recommended, so that because it's not a specialty vehicle, that we could consider direct negotiation with a local dealer with the expectation that the available funds would net a 3 to 5 year-old vehicle. Then we had the second option that has come up since the Operation Committee met, as the state bid came out with an email with some 2013 vehicles, which now include some 2014 vehicles that we could buy on the state bid for about the same price. So then we pursued that option, and we looked at all the vehicles that were on the state bid that met our criteria, a half-ton, two-wheel drive vehicle. And there was 2 that came out that most fit our expectations or what we would need. One was a Dodge Ram two-wheel drive, and one was a Ford F-150 two-wheel drive. We contacted the state bid holder for both of those. It was the Ford bid that came back to us from Midway Ford in the cities, and it had an $18,057 base, and that was for a 2014 vehicle. There is one package that we would need to add to that because some of the things weren't on that truck that we would need. So the final price is actually $20,103.92, and that is for a 2014 Ford F-150 two-wheel drive Super Cab, which has the V6 engine in it, which was thought we would maybe get a little better mileage around town with that than we would with a V8. And remember, this is our runner truck. Then we also wanted to look locally because we really wanted to do business locally, and we checked with John Weiss Ford to see how close they could come to that number. Because the Midway Ford in the cities has the metro price with the state bid, they can give us a little better deal than John Weiss Ford can do. However, we have a bid price from them of $21,051, or $947 more than the bid out of the Minneapolis. Keep in mind that if we were to take the one in Minneapolis, then we've got a couple guys in a truck that got to drive down there, pick it up, we have wages and such. So I think the question here tonight is, do we want to do the business locally? Do we want to take the business down to the cities? We did have a conversation with Jai Weiss today, and we may have some movement on that number. But I wanted to get some parameters from the city council before we go forward. We would like to purchase the vehicle. We think this is the right vehicle. It's just a matter of which dealer do we pick it up at. And so I have the numbers in front of you. At John Weiss was $21,051, and at Midway Ford is $20,103.92. That's a difference of $947.08. But both are the state bid. It's just that the state bid price outstate is a little different.
Was the Dodge Ram on the state bid too?
The Dodge Ram was on the state bid. However, the dealer did not. There was Chevys on it too, but the Chevys had expired. And then the Dodge Ram, they did not get back to us.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have, again, we're looking at replacing a vehicle that we had funds that were set aside of $23,000 $342. So I'm glad we planned and we projected our costs. It's great to see we come under almost 2,000 or over that. I did, as Vicki stated, there was conversations with John Weiss Ford today, and there's no doubt that, we can always go out, I think, and find something cheaper, whether it's at Midway Ford or someplace even out of state. And I think the state bid, sets the parameters quite close between the dealers to be able to, the dollars that they have room for movement is very minimal. I do know in the discussion with Vicki, and I also was involved with that call, that Jai is very willing, or John Weiss Ford is very willing to talk about options as far as getting that price a little closer if that's what they feel the council needs to know, but there's just not a lot of dollars for room to go, but I think there's some leeway there. My recommendation to council would be to move forward with acquiring the vehicle from John Weiss Ford. It's the identical vehicle, and keep our business as local as we can. I think for these dollars, it's within our budgeted dollars amount that we should consider John Weiss Ford as where we purchase. That's my comments. I'll open it up to the council.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I know we're talking two guys going down to pick up this truck. One of our vehicles will be, 200 miles up and down the road. We're going to have $400 or $500 in picking up that vehicle, so that's a good chunk of the difference. And if we can get a little closer on John Weiss, I think we're going to be close enough that it makes sense to just keep it local.
The only concern I have is, the Dodge Ram, even though they picked going with the V6 instead of the V8, the Dodge Ram was on the state bid too, and we didn't go to Dan Welly and ask them, or did we?
We did not talk to them, because after we did the further research, the Dodge Ram did not have a V6 that was on the state bid. They only have certain vehicles that they have, and as we did the further research, and because Midway Ford is the Ford dealer that got back to us, we went to get a comparison for them. But we did not do the local, I don't believe Tom called on the Dodge. Right.
So based on your research, you felt the truck that met what the needs were was the Ford, and especially when you looked at the base price, you also recognized that
the base price was less on the Ford.
Right. Okay. Understand. Any other questions?
You said that the Dodge had a lot lower gas mileage as well. Is that right?
Correct. The projected
so
gas
our operating
mileage on the
costs
Dodge
will be that much higher for it.
It just seems to me that if we're going to go local, we should be at least giving everybody a chance if we're going to do that local, rather than just go to one dealer.
Oh, I agree. I think as we continue to look at vehicles and we find a vehicle that meets what the needs are of our departments, whether it's a Dodge or Chevy or Ford, if we would have chosen the Dodge to be what met the needs of the department based on what they felt was best for them, then we would be discussing having a discussion with Dan Welly. But because the Ford was what they felt was what their needs were and met their needs, then we're talking about Ford here. And I think we have to always look local, but being it's Ford, we're looking at our local Ford dealer. Had it been a Dodge, we'd be talking about what Welly's would have done, or other people that offer that vehicle.
To add to that just a bit too, is that in 2014, the Chevy, the heavier duty Chevys will be back unavailable on the state bid. And as we look at replacement of that red Dodge pickup that we have, that we need to have a beefier truck, the leaning is more to a Chevy because they sit a little lower and for taking tar off the back and stuff. So they kind of are looking out forward, thinking that, we're probably going to be leaning toward a Chevy for replacing that truck, and we have a Ford for replacing this truck. It was a little bit of, when I talked to Tom Johnson, kind of what his thought process was.
Okay.
So.
That's good.
I know the operations committee went through this whole thing, but do we really think we need a super cab?
Well, I think we talked about having this be a vehicle that might go for training, so we want to have seats.
Okay.
And also they want to have, they'll keep some tools and stuff behind there, as they're out working.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? again, I think is, Warren and Dave, I think you guys all made great points about local. And I think as we go forward, we've always looked at where can we get the best price, but if we can get something close and still buy it local, I think that's so important. I think we need to really look at that, because as we go forward, I know the operations committee, I know the finance committee have all looked at potential police vehicles in the future. Again, this will come up at that particular point based on what the requirements will be for, based on Brian's recommendation for replacements. But these folks are people in town, work in town, and pay the tax, so I certainly support it. If someone wants to make a motion, the only thing I think Vicki and I, when we were talking earlier, would be nice if we want to give her some leeway, some negotiating, if you want to say it's going to be not to exceed this or not, at least some wiggle room if that's what you choose to do, to give her some ideas of what she has room to work with. So, with that, I'll ask the council, is there a motion to approve a resolution 2013-70 authorizing the purchase of a public works vehicle?
So moved.
Got a motion by Mike. Mike, could you please add to your motion any criteria if you want, or do we make your motion include the purchase of the vehicle from John Wees Ford, or what is your motion? Just for clarification. So
you want to have some leeway in here for the negotiation? Right.
The current price, full price at John Wees Ford is $21,051. Obviously, the other base price was $20,103. Is there a set limit that you feel that you need to be?
Well, if it's all right with the council, we set it that not to exceed the base, or the 2151.
Okay. Gives staff the opportunity to negotiate a price that works for them. Mm-hmm. Okay. We have a motion to approve resolution 2013-70 authorizing the purchase of public works vehicle at John Wees Ford not to exceed $21,051. Is that your motion, Mike?
It is.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mike and seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor, 1 against.
I'm sorry, who made that second?
Second by Dave. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to I, approve resolution 2013-71, approving the purchase of a mower. The street and public works are going to have us broke by the end of this meeting tonight, but we're going to get through it.
You're not going to be broke. This money's already set aside.
All right, Vicki, go ahead.
Okay, and I have Dave here now, so you have to ask him a question so he doesn't feel like he came in vain tonight. So the Parks Department, they've been budgeting through the sinking fund for the purchase of a replacement mower for the John Deere 1445. Has a mower deck and a sweeper on it. The replacement mower will also include a snow blower. This is the mower that we use for sidewalks in the winter and mowing in the summer. So in the winter time, we would go back and forth between the blower and the sweeper. The Operations Committee met and reviewed the options for the purchase through the State of Minnesota bid process. You can see we had three. We had a Toro, a John Deere, and a Kubota. And the Kubota F3080 actually came in at the lowest price. And that base price included the added options. So we don't have options added to this. This is what the price would be. The Kubota is from Alexandria Power Equipment, and the John Deere would be from Midwest Machinery, and the Toro from MTI in Brooklyn Park. The quoted prices do not include sales tax. We're back at that sales tax thing again. So the Kubota dealer, Dave talked to him today, and they do have a 2013 model that is created, and it's actually in Grand Forks right now, that they could obtain for us if we go with that. And then they would get that here now, and then we would actually pay for it after the first of the year, after the sales tax exemption goes into effect. So those dollars would stay in the sinking fund and actually be paid out after the first of the year. So what we're asking tonight is to approve 2013-71, accepting the quote for the purchase of a Kubota, their F3080 with more attachments. And I've had a couple questions about, we're not going green this time, and what the reasonings are and how we made this recommendation. So if you have any of those questions, I'm sure Dave would be able to answer them for you. Like maybe what does the Kubota do different than the John Deere, et cetera. This is also another one of those pieces of equipment that after the first of the year with the Tier 4 engine adds about $4,000 to this price. The chipper was about $8,000.
All right, Dave, I have some questions for you.
Good.
Just probably two quick ones. I just wanted to get a comparison of what this unit is going to replace. The size of the mower deck that we currently are using, what size is that today?
72.
So it's kind of a same size of a mower deck. Are all the attachments the same size of what we have today?
With the current one, we don't have a snow blower for it.
Right?
We had two tractors before that. One had the snow blower, one had the sweeper. This one has a quick attach toolless equipment change option, so it would have a quick hitch on it. So you can, within like a minute and a half, change from the sweeper to the snow blower or the mower. So you've got one machine that will easily switch. Yes, that's kind of a standard size on the broom, 60-inch, and the 48 to 50-inch on the snow blowers. That's what we've had in the past.
So this one says 45 to 55 inch. Do you know what snow blower attachment you're requesting or planning on getting, or you've got a 10-inch?
Yes, this is a 50 that comes under the mower.
So this will be a 50-inch,
Yeah.
okay? And the broom will be what?
A 60.
60-inch, okay?
The John Deere did not have a quick attachment.
Okay.
I guess I don't know why they haven't, but they don't.
The one question I got is we're replacing a 1445, and there's a John Deere 1445 on the bid specs, or that came in with the 35.5. Is there anything that we could get by without purchasing? You know, is there a broom, or is there, you know, we're not getting the snow, we don't have a snow blower for it now.
Right.
But is the broom something that we could drop off and put on the new 1445, or won't they come past?
It's shot, and it's really been a disappointment, that broom. I mean, it's just some things, you just have a lot of trouble with them, and that's been one of them.
Okay.
It's a sweeper on that John Deere. The ones before that were great, but this one, they had changed it, and we've had nothing but trouble with it.
Is that a John Deere sweeper or a Perco?
John Deere, which I don't think make their own.
And so the existing mower and sweeper and attachments, are we going to get rid of that then? Are we going to sell it, or is it going to go to bids? What's the plan?
Once we have this here delivered, and so we could put it right up, I think the min bid, because it worked so well last time with that little garden tractor that we sold, it exceeded what we expected to get out of it. And I'm thinking this is going to be roughly worth $7,000 to $8,000 selling it bid-wise.
Okay. And so our plan is not to keep it and keep putting money into it, it's
Right.
going to get rid of it?
It's 10 years old, and I think it's right at $1,800 on it, so it's
How many?
$1,800.
Okay.
The other question I got is, we've had this mower, the 1445, for how many years?
10 years.
10 years. How many years have we gone without a snow blower? You know, do we actually need the snow blower now that we got the tool cat and that?
Well, yeah, we really do, because that's just a little bit too big to fit everywhere down our sidewalks with these fancy lights we've got.
Okay.
Good way to put
I won't say any
it.
more about them, but in the past, we've had that other smaller, the snow blower on the garden tractor.
Yeah.
So, but we sold that, it's been a full year ago, I guess, already. So we did go last year with no small snow blower, and it makes the job a lot tougher. The tool cat works great in a lot of places. It really can throw a lot of snow, but it's a little big. It has its limitations.
Okay.
All right. So do you have the total cost broken down by attachment as well? I don't see that in
Yeah,
here.
we actually do have their original quotes here with everything itemized, yes.
So I'm just curious, I guess, how much are the attachments? How much is the snow blower attachment and the broom attachment?
60-inch sweeper. And it's because, I mean, some of this is going to be the quick attach hitch is quoted separately. That's $1,300, which you need to use these for quick attach. But you buy one and it's used on all three
Yep.
pieces.
So just the attachments themselves.
The rotary, 60-inch rotary sweeper is $3,870. Snow blower is $4,155.
Okay.
Those were the Kubota numbers.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted it for information. Any other questions? So do we have a total dollar amount here? I don't see it in my list, Vicki.
Yes, it should be that.
It would be the 31,498 for all the attachments and for everything? All right.
And that's without sales tax.
Okay. Very good.
And that falls into that Tier 4 in 14 as well, those Tier 4 engines. The salesman told me that's going to change the price of this machine, $3,500 to $4,000.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Big difference.
Very good. Any other questions?
How much have we got in the sinking fund? 35?
35 for.
Oh, see, they're saving us money.
Yeah. They are. You're right.
Put it against streets.
Okay. With that, no other questions? Is there then a motion to approve the resolution 2013-71 accepting the quote for purchase of the Kubota F3080 mower with attachments for $31,498?
So moved.
Motion by Keith. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Okay, Vicki, we have just spent $95,000. I think we're done tonight.
Just wait.
Wait, yeah.
All right, we'll move on. We got one more action item, one more bigger expense. Approve partial payment voucher number 9, R.L. Larson Excavating.
Get your checkbook out.
This is the big one. All right, go ahead.
Okay, this is for the 4th Street project. This is payment approval number 9. The payment request is for $102,778.71. That is work completed to date of $2,398,675. Payments to date, including this one, of $2,278,741. So there is that 5% retainage, Mr. Johnson, of $119,933.76. So what we're looking today is the payment voucher. It's actually number 9 in the amount of $102,778.71.
All right. We have a request to approve payment voucher number 9 to R.L. Larson for the work and completion of the 4th Street project in the amount of $102,778.71. Is there a motion?
Oh, good. then.
Motion by
I'll
Keith.
motion that.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Warren. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. We'll move on to our unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so we can go right into new business. We have a couple things for new business this evening. Vicki, tree planting plan.
We just have 3 items there. On the tree planting plan, the staff has started working on that proposal for the city. We've also ordered some tree watering bags. They hold 20 gallons of water. They kind of zip around the tree, and then the water gradually seeps into the ground. It's kind of like a soaker hose, only it's a bag that zips around the base of the tree. So we're going to try those out. I mean, that's something that will enable us to go out and water maybe once a week or every 10 days and let that water seep into the ground. Another thing that we're working on is the gravel roads. I mentioned that earlier. We're looking at Hickman on the far end up there on the northwest corner of the city. Maybe get some drainage or some class 5 or chloride or something, because that's very, very washboardy. The top of it is all gone. The sand is all at the bottom of the hill. So we're working on a plan for that. Another purchase that we're going to have to do is a control box at the arena for the fire alarm sprinkler system, etc. This will be the third one in the arena. We're going to move it into an area that's more climate controlled, and hopefully that'll extend the life of it. And so that's just kind of some things that are going on as they start ramping up. Going to put ice in the arena in a few weeks, so it's hard to believe that's coming already, but it is. But there's just kind of some of the things that are going on that maybe are a little bigger than normal day-to-day activity.
That's only a control box, that isn't a new system or anything?
No. No, not a new system.
Any questions in regards to the new business then? No? All right, well, we'll go into our consent agenda. We have a few items on our consent agenda this item, and I'll just go through them. Schedule of claims for unpaid claims of $140,544.47, paid claims of $1,506.40 for a total of $142,050.87. We had our August checks totaling $977,054.78, and check numbers 1950E to 1975E, along with 034-226 to 034-334. We also have several contributions. We have a resolution 2013-72 accepting these contributions. We have the police department received $500 from ECM Publishers, the Sauk Center Senior Center $300, the ambulance department $500, the fire department $500, the Sauk Center Senior Dining $300, all of these from ECM Publishing, and also the arena of $5,000 from the Sauk Center Youth Hockey Association. I want to thank them for those contributions. Also, we have a request from Jim Winters representing the American Legion Post 67. They submitted a temporary extension of premise permit for a 5K run and a DJ music in their north parking lot on Saturday, October 19th from noon till 10 p.m. And we also have a second request from Jim Winters and Jeff Quistorf representing the Legion for a road closure of Park Road. The Park Board made a recommendation for the closure of the road from the intersection of Oak and Park Road to the boat landing. Any questions in regards to the consent agenda? Vicki, I just want a clarification that item E, is that in conjunction with D?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the date and everything's are the same.
Part of the 5K run.
That's what I thought.
There.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So,
We got a motion by Warren.
second.
We have a second by Mike, or excuse me, second by Dave. Is there any discussion?
Oh, one question. Is Dave still here? Yeah. On the Frederick's Tire and Oil, it says 3 tires for the Toolcat. Did we change the 4th one at a previous time, or?
We did a little earlier in the year. It got damaged, one got damaged.
Okay.
The tires that were on that are no longer available in that same tread design. So our plan was to buy that one then that matches these other 3 now. So
Okay.
we just prolonged the
Because I knew there was 4 tires, and I didn't
Yeah.
think that we should be changing all 3 of the 4. And all right.
They only
Okay.
drive it on 2 wheels anyway.
All right. Is there any other questions in regards to the consent agenda?
No.
I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. The last thing we have in our packet is the informational that is a reminder of the City of Sauk Center's 2013 Fall Cleanup Day. As Sarah stated earlier, it's Friday, September 20th, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then again on Saturday, the 21st, from 8 to noon. It's located at the Civic Arena parking lot, which is 818 Center Street. The things is offering free disposal of the following items: refrigerators, freezers, washers, dryers, stoves, air conditioners, microwaves, humidifiers, furnaces, water heaters, computers, towers, copiers, all sorts of scrap metals, batteries. The only thing there will be a charge for will be computer monitors, and TVs will be accepted for a fee of $10. Cash only, please. That being said, there's nothing else on our agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Keith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.